Peace, peace, Black people. How is everyone doing today? Welcome to Yemima's World, the Jelly Moose's Cafe. I am your hostess, Yemima, and it is good to be Black in the land of the living once again. All right, this was probably going to be short. I just wanted to come on really quick. As you can see, the title is called Honoring the Ancestors or Ancestral Veneration. And I have met quite a few people in the last month or so that are stepping into a new realm of spirituality in their lives. And they often ask me what I do or how I honor my ancestors or venerate my ancestors. And in some cases, worship my ancestors. And I know a lot of times people have a problem with that word, worship the ancestors. But if you look up what the word means, it simply means to adore. It also means to venerate. So people say, well, you should only worship God. But I don't know what that word God means. It means different things to different people. So I choose to honor, venerate, and yes, even at times worship my ancestors because I admire and I adore them and I do lavish worship on them from time to time. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of my background and how I got into not honoring or worshiping or venerating the ancestors, but how I started to recognize that I've always been doing that. And most of us are already doing it. We just don't recognize it. A lot of times we believe that it has to be a specific ritual that you have to do to honor your ancestors, to worship your ancestors, that you have to have a specific set of steps that you have to do to honor them. You have to have the candles, you have to have the altar and all that and the other. When you really don't need any of that at all to honor and venerate your ancestors. Again, most of us are already doing it, regardless of what your ethnicity is, regardless of what your race, religion, uh, sexuality. Um, Most of us, if not all of us, in some way or another, honor our ancestors. Um, and the only time I see where it's a problem is in the Black community. They have really, really done a number on us where we really, truly believe that honoring our ancestors is demonic. So, ways that we already honor our ancestors is going to the gravesite. Um, when we go to the grave sites of our dearly departed, our beloved family members that have passed on, and we put flowers on the grave, sometimes we'll put personal items on the grave, we'll sit and talk to them. When we first walk up to the grave, we acknowledge, we let them know that we're here. Hey, big mama. Hey, granddaddy. Hey, mama. Hey, daddy. We talk to them. That is a way of honoring the ancestors by placing things on their grave and also by talking to and acknowledge, let them know that you're here. And sometimes we'll stand there and we'll catch them up on stuff that go on in the family. People will take their children to the grave and mom, big mama, hey, this such and such daughter, yeah, she graduated. We so happy. You're introducing your family, your living family members to a deceased family member that you think they don't know. They do know, they just didn't know them in the physical. So that's one way of honoring your ancestors. Another way of honoring your ancestors is, especially for us women, and some men too, a lot of men too, who are cooks, who are chefs. When we get in their kitchen and we cook one of our ancestors' favorite meals, it could be on their birthday. We make Big Mama's special apple cake on her birthday, or we'll get out there on the grill and we throw in with the ribs for Big Pop Pop. He used to like those ribs on his birthday. That is also honoring your ancestors. Another way of honoring them, and I see a lot of this, is People will get tattoos of the name of their ancestors on their arm, their leg, their back, whatever body part. They will honor their ancestors by getting a tattoo of their name or a tattoo of their favorite. I don't know if they love butterflies, they may get a butterfly, and underneath the butterfly, they may put mom, dad, or whatever. That's another way that you are honoring your ancestors. You honor your ancestors also in ways of naming your children after them. That is a big way of honoring the ancestors when you name your children after them. When I have gone through my family lineage and I find my ancestors, like my great grandmothers and great great grandmothers, and I'm like, oh my God, my auntie is named after them. My uncle is named after, our great great grandfather. So when you name your children after your ancestors, that's another way of honoring them. You're honoring them. You're bringing back their essence. You're bringing back hopefully their character if they were a good people. So that's another way of honoring your ancestors. Um, you honor them by giving. If you know that someone has um, a giving heart, a giving spirit, and they pass on, and you want to continue that giving spirit or that that charitable spirit, and so you may have a nonprofit. You may name the nonprofit after them. You may go out in the community and this is the da 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 da. This is the Gracie da 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 da. Memorial Center or whatever you name centers after them. That's another way of honoring your ancestors. I remember that we used to have a family reunion on my mom's side every 2 years, and when my mother was getting up in age, she would go, but she didn't really feel like going. But she would always say, "Well, I'm going to go on the account of my daddy," meaning I'm going to go because my daddy would go had he if he was here. So I'm going to go in his stead. That's another way of honoring your ancestors. When you um, when you hear a song on the radio, especially driving in your car, and you hear a song and you know it was Auntie's song, and you're like, oh, this was Aunt such and such song, and you turn it up and you start singing it, and basically you're kind of singing it to them. You turn it up and you start to have memories of that person when they would hear this song. That's how you knew it was their song. Like, oh my God, I remember such and such used to love this song. And you start dancing to it and you start moving to it and grooving to it and singing to it. You're honoring your ancestors in that way. And sometimes we will specifically put on music. I have a whole playlist of songs that my ancestors used to like, and I'll put it together. And sometimes on Friday night or Saturday night, when I want to hear music, I'll put the music on that I know songs that they like. Especially my sister. My older sister was the one who would be in charge of the music on car rides. Whenever we would go distances, she would be the one that pull out her big black CD player, and she would definitely play songs. And so I have created entire playlist of songs that I knew she loved. And sometimes on her birthday, I will make her special spaghetti that she loved to make, and I will put on a playlist of songs, and that's how I would honor my sister. That's how I honor. She's an ancestor now, and that's how I honor her. So I told you it's going to be really short and sweet. I just wanted to come on. Now I have evolved, or I won't say I've evolved, but I've added more ways of honoring my ancestors because I now know that it is a relationship where I can ask them for help. Before it was just, you know, honoring them and just making sure that I remember them. But in my journey, my spiritual journey in practicing or being a hoodoo practitioner, I know that I can go to my ancestors for help. And so the honoring has gotten a little bit more, I don't want to say elaborate because that makes it sound like that it's a scheme or something, but it's gotten more attention to it, or it's gotten more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but I have an altar in my home, and I will do an episode maybe about how to create an ancestral altar. But I have an altar in my home, and on Sundays is Ancestral Day. On Sundays, I put gospel music on, or a gospel sermon on, and put it in front of my altar. I fix a Sunday dinner like my mother would have fixed, my grandmother's would have fixed. So I do that, and I read from the Bible to my ancestors, and I'll just have an ancestral day. Um, I have learned about a form of prayer, and I may pronounce it wrong, but it's called Ugufasla, and it is an African way of tapping into the energy of your ancestors. And it is a specific ritual. There are specific items that you have to have during this ritual. And so I've started doing that once a month. And I'm gonna tell you, when I started to fasta, I would have water, and I would have pictures to appear in my water. So I started doing that, and so I've gotten a little bit more precise, I guess, in honoring my ancestors. I go to different events that um, honor the ancestors on specific times, especially out of the water. I'm part of a community where we have a misa every quarter, and we just sit around and just talk about, the ancestors. I'm starting to meet people that are doing the same things that I'm doing. So that energy is out there, and I'm receiving energy, and it's matching energy, and I'm loving it. But for the most part, it's always honored our ancestors. It wasn't until we started to really, 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 well, I'm gonna tell you when it started. It started when our pastors started going to white seminary schools. So, in order to get a license to preach the gospel in most places, you have to go to seminary school. And they're going to white seminary schools. So, these white people are teaching them what they are supposed to be preaching to their congregation. And that's when it started to, our ancestral veneration, ancestral honor started to kind of lax, it started to kind of fade away. It was when we started to learn the Western religion. But we have always honored our ancestors, and we still do. We just don't use those terms because we're so afraid of what white people have taught us that we are somehow offending, white Jesus if we honor our ancestors, not realizing that, Jesus is a white ancestor or a black ancestor. Either way, he's an ancestor. And you honor and you worship Jesus because he was in the flesh. And everybody on earth is part flesh, part spirit, and part soul. So Jesus had the same makeup that we have. So when he died, he became an ancestor. And people say, "Well, no, he rose again." Well, didn't your physical ancestors, didn't they rise again? Didn't they wake up in heaven? So it's nothing wrong with honoring your ancestors. They certainly do. They honor their ancestors. Let me tell you how they honor their ancestors. They honor their ancestors by bringing back the same laws that their ancestors or forefathers used to oppress and enslave us. They honor their ancestors by putting up statues of Confederate soldiers. They honor their ancestors by naming schools after Confederate soldiers or after enslavers. That's how they honor their ancestors. And guess what? You honor their ancestors too. As a matter of fact, you honor their ancestors before you honor your own. and you don't have any problem, you don't think honoring their ancestors is demonic at all, but you think honoring yours is. All right, so look, continue to honor your ancestors. Create you an altar, communicate with them, talk to them. I promise you, they will talk back, they will communicate back with you, and they will do it in different ways. It may not be verbally, it may be another way they will communicate back to you. They will do it because you are flesh of their flesh, you are bone of their bone, you are soul of their soul, and you are spirit of their spirit. They are your roots. So honor your ancestors. And until next time, you know the drill. Love yourself, love each other, give yourself some grace, give each other grace. Stay cool, stay healthy. Most of all, stay black. Until next time, peace, family.